Fulton County under Athena Greenholtz in the digital transformation department with the CAPSTone program as a management policy analyst.
Thank you, Kirby.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bao, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Hey, my name is Bao Li. I graduated from Georgia State University in spring of 2021, and that's also when I work at the Fulton County Capstone program. Currently, I'm working at Software One as an associate. They're also a cloud company too, helping people migrate to the cloud. So I think we have some competition here. But yeah, that's it about me.
Perfect. Chris, do you want to go next?
Yes. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Phillips. I'm a application developer here at Fulton County. To give you a little background, for me, I used to be an intern here for Fulton County since 2019. I was brought on as a intern to help with the migration of our website from our old to what you see now for Fulton County GA. I graduated college back in December of 2020 from Georgia Gwinnett College, and I was brought full-time on in, I believe it was June of this year. Yeah, so June of this year is when I started full-time here at Fulton County. And I graduated with a bachelor's in security, IT security. And that's all for me.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you.
Yes.
Brian?
Hey everyone, so nice to get to speak to you all. So my name is Brian Berrios. I am a business systems analyst at Origami Risk, which is a software company down in downtown Atlanta by the perimeter area. They focus a lot on business insurance, which isn't the most exciting thing, but I help with the kind of like the standards and the operations and kind of helping clients get on board for new ones. So it's been great. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And Kevin?
Hey, can everybody hear me?
We can hear you perfectly.
Awesome. Hey, so my name is Kevin Chen, and I am what's known as a management policy analyst for the strategy and performance division within Fulton County. A much better term, to be honest, is just a data analyst. I was also, much like many people here, a recent graduate and a part of the CAPSTone project that Justina has been the mentor of for quite some time now, I think. And yeah, I'm really excited to share some of my inputs here.
So wonderful. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for sharing. So a little housekeeping. We're gonna give panelists a chance to answer those 3 questions that they are visible on the screen. And then we're gonna give all the attendees opportunity to ask the questions, and we're gonna promote you from the attendees to the panelists so you guys can see each other and can have a discussion. So please stay tuned, allow the panelists to answer all the questions that we have on the screen, and then we're gonna move to phase 2 where you guys are gonna be able to ask all the questions. So Kirby, sorry, but you're gonna be the first one answering all the questions. And I wanna make sure when you guys answering those questions, the purpose of this meeting is to give as much as possible benefits for the current students. We wanna make sure that they take advantage of this program as much as possible. So when they leave, they're gonna be able to find a job as soon as possible, and they can bring out of this program the best. So just please be mindful, bring some of the aspects of the projects that you have benefits or you've seen it that it benefits somebody else. Okay, thank you so much. And I'm gonna pass the card.
Yes, thank you, Justina. Hey, Jessica. So panel-centered introduction. Just a little bit about myself. I have a non-traditional career path in which I went back to school at Georgia State University for computer science. And during that time, I also obtained an internship at Fulton County government, which is how I came across working with the capstone program. So I was never actually a capstone student, but I worked closely with many of the capstones interns here, even on this board. And so just my perspective is going to be a little bit different, but that is just kind of a background. But my favorite part about the capstone intern program was really just watching and learning and seeing the students. The students really came in, and within the 4 months under Justina, and the program really transformed from never having any professional experience to being equipped to handle and really navigate professional settings and issues and technical but interpersonal challenges. And that didn't happen overnight. It really was through, I would say, failing and picking yourself back up and then willing to try it again. I mean, some teams really struggle in the first couple of weeks to impress and really get into the root of some of their capstone projects. But by the end of the capstone experience for them, I saw that they were able just to polish themselves and really come through in the first and last presentation being completely different. So that was my favorite part, was watching that happen. And that really takes both effort from the sponsors, people that run the program, but also the students themselves. The biggest lesson I learned from my time at Fulton County, I think the lesson that I saw being on the other side of the program was everyone had different experiences within the capstone and internship program. And one of the things I saw really differentiated people and their success within the program is the willingness to ask for help, or just to be transparent and, seek other people within their network that they've made at Fulton County for, hey, I'm having some issues on this, can you help me? And through that mentorship, or just being able to add additional experience to the program, to tell them like what they could be doing better, or shooting ideas, bouncing off ideas. You saw really difference in the way they took away from that program. And not only just that, but even afterwards, because you built that relationship with those sponsors and mentors, you get to go to them and say, hey, I'm applying for these jobs, can I use you as a recommendation? And they can actually speak to you. So really important building that relationship. And the way you do that is just maybe just reaching out individually to those people that you've worked with in your network in your department. And I've seen a lot of those cases where internships and jobs where they ask for, hey, can you prep me for this interview? And some people were able to do that and really secure that role. So that's something that I saw as a lesson. And as far as advice for current students, I think this is such a unique opportunity, because when I was a part of the program, whenever we did the project kickoff, we would ask students, what is it that they want to get out of the program? And many people said, hey, I've gone through 4 years of university and I've got all this great theoretical knowledge, and but I've never had a chance to apply it. And the whole point of the capstone program is to allow the students to apply all that knowledge they've been building into a practical sense of being able to use that for the interview. So really just making sure that this is your time to shine during those 4 months. Additionally, it's better to kind of like fail here, because it's such a low risk environment. So that way, after the worst case that could happen is 4 months, you're like, you turn it around and you're able to salvage your reputation and whatnot, because people are understanding. But when you go into your first full-time role, your impression that you make, or whatever it is that you fail, could carry through you for the 2 years that you're there. So I would just say, like, if you're it's okay, it's everyone's understanding. The only thing you don't want to do is just lack of effort. I think everything else people can understand and work with you on, but if you're not really putting into it, you're not going to get a lot out of it. So that's kind of my take on it, my impression.
Thank you, Kirby, and excellent feedback. And you have an excellent perspective, because Kirby was working with me very, very closely, and he helped so many different students through this program. So thank you, Kirby. So we're going to move to the next panelist. Bao.
Yeah, hey. So a little bit more info about myself is at the capstone program, I work on the data and visualization team. And now that I work at Software One, I transitioned that into the data platform and analytics department of my company. So with that in mind, my favorite part about the capstone intern program is that I actually be able to use what I've learned in the capstone program and transition that to what I am working on right now in real life. So I would say that that to me is the biggest and most favorite part about a capstone program. The biggest lesson that I've learned during my time at Fulton County is that it's 100% fine to fail. As Kirby mentioned earlier, I was part of the team that did not start off very well, but I would say we ended very strongly. So yeah, do not be afraid to fail at first. At first it sucks. Yeah, I mean, go to meetings, having Justina just sit there and judge you that you're not giving her what she wants. But even though you work in it a lot, you put all your effort in there, it's just not showing up. That's 100% fine. That's how life is, right? So it's fine to fail. The biggest thing is that when you fail, try to learn from it. If you don't learn from it, then you're just failing for no reason. And the advice that I have for current students as well, like I said, like I mentioned earlier, it's fine to fail. Everybody here, your sponsors, your teammates, they're there to help you. So just use that to your advantage. And yeah, that'll be it for me.
Laugh because a couple of times after Bao's team's presentation with Justina, afterwards we had to regroup and literally have to like give them the pep talk and pick them up from the floor because they just got destroyed in the beginning by Justina. But after working together, they really put a lot of time into it. They were one of the best capstone projects that I saw from that semester. So really just 180 from underdog to top performing for Bao's team.
Yeah, thank you.
So Bao, remember I have chosen you for this project because you had Tableau on your resume, correct?
Yeah, yeah. Before I before I came to
So
the
can you
program,
tell after this coming into that capstone program and coming out, what is your Tableau knowledge now?
yeah, before the capstone program, I worked as a teaching assistant, and I did teach people how to use Excel and Tableau. So that's why I put into my resume. I did not know too much about Tableau. I know how to use it, but yeah, I've learned so much during my time there. Like I learned from Michael. I'm not sure if he's still there or not, but yeah, and also I also learned how to, well, just self-taught myself Tableau for the most part, I guess. And after the program, I mean, I think I'm ready to take the Tableau certification whenever.
Now you can honestly put this on your resume, correct?
Yeah. Well, nowadays I
Mm.
use Power BI more, but yeah, I'm pretty
It's still the
confident in my
same. The
Tableau.
concept is the same behind the
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Bao. And now we're going to move to next panelist, Brian.
For sure. So I had the great pleasure of also working with Justina as my sponsor for the request for proposal for a social services application. I tackled that project in spring of 2020 because I ended up graduating in May of 2020. Was also able to work with Kirby, and having him help was also fantastic. So I'm sure a lot of us appreciate him as well. So my favorite part about the capstone program is how easy it is to kind of talk to the people around you, and not just your colleagues or your team, but as well as the people at Fulton County. I remember my first day kind of introducing myself, being really nervous, but everyone just kind of made it feel like home. And then they were like, hey, this is where I work in. If you have any questions, even though it's not related to your project, just stop me, ask me, and I got you. And so I did do that a couple times. And the friendliness from them kind of made me feel a lot more comfortable. And that made it really easy to for me to ask questions when need be. So that was really one of my favorite things about the intern program. one of the biggest lessons that I learned was communication, which again, thankfully they made it easy. So communication between, your sponsor, kind of getting feedback from them, as well as in the meeting, and also with your professors, because that's actually one of the things that I struggled with was, you have to give updates to your sponsor about where you are with the project, but I also know that you kind of have to chime in with the GSU side of it. And so that gave me a little bit of trouble because I kind of had to get two different presentations, one to Justina and the Fulton County team, and then kind of alter it and then give it in a different way to the GSU professors who are kind of overseeing the Fulton County side as well. And so kind of that balance definitely did help me out because I do see that in the career path that I'm in. What advice would I have to the current students? Definitely, like everyone has said, take advantage of it. This is your time to practice. This is your time to kind of, go out there. If this is your first time kind of giving presentations, your first time as an internship in a professional setting, it's perfectly normal to feel really nervous and kind of intimidated. But this is where it's at, where, it's okay to stumble and to kind of trip because everyone's there to kind of just help you out. And so definitely don't be afraid to ask for help. Definitely take the feedback into consideration. All of that is gonna, help you out. And yeah, just make sure you really take advantage of that. Fulton County is a big name. Once I put the Fulton County thing, this internship on my resume, even though I had other items on there, Fulton County was one of the biggest things that in the interview process people would ask me about. And so take advantage of it. Definitely kind of understand what your project is about and kind of what you input into it, because that's definitely going to help you out.
Thank you, Brian. Do you want to share, Brian, a little bit about your project, how successful it was?
Yeah, so it was a little intimidating because it was a request for proposal, which essentially is a pretty long document about that you post up onto the Fulton County procurement website, and then other companies kind of bid for it, saying, hey, I want to tackle that, and then they get to get paid for that. And so the RFP pretty much defines what the project is supposed to do. So here's the scope, here are the requirements, this is exactly what we're looking for. Here are kind of the stuff that we would like to have, and if the long shot everything goes perfect, these are the icing on the cake that we'd love to have as well. And I was able to tackle that. And Justina actually reached out to me a couple months afterwards, once the capstone had ended and I had graduated, and she let me know that it was finalized and it was up for procurement. And so that's something I'm very, very proud of.
Absolutely. And we are very proud of you as well. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Chris?
Yes, thank you, Justina. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I'll give a little background also. So I mentioned that I am a application developer here at Fulton County, but what that really looks like, at least for my job description, is that I help maintain various applications on the back end side at Fulton County. One would be our main website platform, which is Sitecore. So I help maintain the upkeep of our website, as well as other applications that we use here at Fulton County, such as SharePoint. I deal with permissions on SharePoint. Qualtrics is another thing I help support with Justina. And that essentially is what I do on a day-to-day basis. Now, when I was an intern, my project was to, like I mentioned, to move all of the data from our old website onto the new, with the new look and feel of this system. So that was what my project was and what it still is essentially now, but there were different parts and milestones that I checked off as an intern. Now, the kind of crazy part to me is that when I was an intern, when it came to like the capstone project, Justina asked me to help her sponsor this capstone team in the making of our Center of Excellence showcase on the website, because before then we didn't have a way that people in the public can view what the capstone program was. without having like a direct link or someone knowing about the program already, but we wanted to showcase it to the public. And at that time I was an intern, and Justine's asking me to essentially lead another set of students that were like the same age as me. It was kind of weird at first because I didn't feel as though I had any authority at the time, but with the experience that I had and the trust that Justina had in me, we were able to take that team from what they used to be to what they are now. And to see that growth was pretty cool. I felt like a project manager or something. So that was a really good experience for me. As far as my favorite part of the Capstone's intern program, I would probably say
Hold on 1 second, Chris. So
Yeah.
where that experience took you
from
from the
Come on.
intern?
Oh, that experience, it took me to a full-time position, I would say, to what I have now. So that was, yeah, definitely direct correlation. Because as well as you, we were all in IT, but it's really good to know to be book smart on all the applications on how to do things, but being able to work with a team as well as like timing and execution is probably on the same level as how to actually work the tools that you're going to be using. Because if a team can't work together, then no product is going to be solved or anything. So you keep in mind that when you're working with your teams. But moving on to my favorite part would probably be to see the outcome of a project actually impact the intended users from like a first person experience. So with the website that we were creating, I was able to see like customers actually utilize the website, fill out forms, provide feedback in a pretty good turnaround time, so we can know where to improve and what areas we're struggling in and what areas we're actually excelling in. So that was probably the biggest takeaway, because before I was working at Fulton County, I was an intern in the private sector for Cox Enterprises. And for the projects that I was working on, it was more of an internal projects that helped employees, but not necessarily the customers that we're facing. But at Fulton County, what I was doing was a direct impact to what the citizens were using. So it was good to see that from an internal perspective. And the biggest see, what was the second question? What was the biggest lesson? The biggest lesson is that I learned is probably that you need to speak up if you don't know something. And what I mean by that is when you're in meetings with other employees, especially now that everything is mostly digital, if you don't have your camera on, no one's necessarily going to know who you are or that you're an intern or just a capstone student. So they're going to assume that you may know things when you're in these various project meetings. But it's good to vocalize your opinion, or if you have a question about anything, because people like to, and I do too myself, people like to talk about things that they're interested in. So if you ask a question on a subject that you see someone else is an expert in, they'll happily answer your question or anything that's related to it. But in order to do that, you have to make sure to unmute your mic and be comfortable in speaking in like various Zoom calls. Because that's probably the takeaway I have is definitely to speak up. Because in the beginning, I was kind of laid back, trying to rely on Justina sometimes to ask all the questions, because since she was my manager and she was with me in all the beginning meetings, I would just let her ask all the questions. But soon enough, she stopped coming to the meeting. She would say, "Oh, Chris, I need you to be there because I have to go to another meeting." So I would have to be the one to report and ask all the questions. So that's my biggest lesson. And as far as advice for students, my biggest advice is to it's probably two things. One is to enjoy time as a capstone or intern, because I already miss being an intern from even though I've only been full-time for a couple months now. But I would definitely say enjoy the time and the experience you get. And two is to be sure to build relationships with people in your project or group that you're in, because relationships and networking is probably how I even got this job at Fulton County, because I wasn't able to go back to Cox on a condition that necessarily wasn't my fault, but due to the fact that my relationship with my manager was so good, he put a word in at Fulton County for me, and they were able to, look at my resume, and I was able to get the interview. Because as an employer, they first seek to hire people that they know or that someone else knows versus someone that they don't know. So if you have good relationships, they can definitely help you in the hiring process. So it's good to build your relationship with your team as well as anyone you work with, because it definitely can help you in the long run. So that's my advice.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move to the next panelist, Kevin.
Hey everyone. Yeah, it was all really good advice. Okay, let me begin. So I guess I'll do introduce myself a little bit more. As I previously mentioned that I was a previous capstone student, and I'm currently now working for Fulton County. I was actually hired right after I graduated from Georgia State, and since I was a part of the capstone student, I was actually hired by the same division that sponsored my project for the capstone project. So I had prior experience from the capstone project, and that transitioned into my current job as a data analyst for the strategy department. So I guess a little bit more background on the project that I worked for my capstone course. I ended up designing a Shiny dashboard, which a Shiny dashboard is you would call it a web-based platform that's designed entirely in the language R. I believe most of you guys are familiar with R, since everyone here would be considered a CIS student. And essentially me and my group ended up creating a fully designed dashboard that was supposed to be displayed for the county manager in anywhere they would like to place it. So for me, my favorite part about the capstone course is that it's completely different than all of your other classes. It just offers you a different experience relative to going to class, reading a book, doing some assignment online, turning it in and repeating it the next week. Here you get a bit more diversity and a bit more autonomy in your actions. You can 1 week, talk to someone new, figure out, you can talk to somebody from within the county that can offer you different experience, that can provide you a bit more insight into what it is that you're doing for your project. And then the next week, you can transition to do something pretty new relative to you. And then the next week, it can offer you another different experience, right? So it's always changing. It's full of, what would you call it, excitement. And it provides you a different experience that you can take on into your future careers. And here, this is like everyone's mentioned before, it's a pretty good environment to make mistakes in. You can figure out who you are as worker, I guess that makes sense. Who it is you are as a person, and how you work amongst your peers and all that. So this is a really great environment to test out who you are and then carry that forward into your careers. I guess for me, I'm still learning within Fulton County since I currently work here. So I guess the question for that is a bit more challenging for me. I think my biggest hurdle is my biggest hurdle would be that it would probably be, I'm getting stuck here. I'm gonna move on. But my advice for current students, other than like outside of working hard, I don't really have any good advice. I guess for me, it's better to be a better person than it is a student. So my advice would just be to be more empathetic, and that's about it. So yeah.
Kevin, I want you to tackle one thing. Remember when you shared with me, even though you thought your skills were not up to this project and the label that you had, it was not really a real label?
Yeah. So yeah, I think what the capstone student also did for me, especially, was provide a sense of confidence that I didn't have before. I think that with a lot of courses, they provide you, like I said, they show you who you are. They show you who you are as a student and as a person. So if you take like all these classes with books and stuff, it may just tell you, hey, you're good at reading a book and then regurgitating that later on. But when you are within a class that has actual weight, and that the actions here you do in this class will transition to something that's more meaningful for the county that you may live in, or in the state that you live in, that has actual weight to it, you kind of gain a sense of accomplishment through that. And so while I was working on my project, I felt that I did something good. I felt like I made an accomplishment rather than just getting an A or a B on a class that may or may not have any real world value to me. So what I think Justine is trying to get me to say is that this course offered me a chance to gain confidence that I knew I had within me, but I didn't realize it because I didn't have a class or a course that provided that opportunity for me. So I think that was also one of the biggest factors within the capstone student, having a legitimate weight to it, so to speak. So yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. That's a very important aspect, and I really want everyone to understand that. So thanks again, Kevin. And before moving to questions and answers, I really want to come back to Kirby. So Kirby worked with me for quite some time, and he will be an excellent person to give you a feedback how important it is to read the emails that Jessica sends to you on a discipline, on taking this action, and be assertive within this program. So Kirby, if you can elaborate on that, I would appreciate it.
Just the making sure that they're up to date with their communication with you and Jessica throughout this program. Yeah, so I worked in the role that Jessica and I worked together in terms of making sure that projects are running along smoothly, and every week we sent out an email, just some updates. But it's really important to make sure that you're on top of those items, because they really help us facilitate the program in a way that we maximize the efficiency, but making sure we're tracking. And we may do some call outs to see if, why is some projects behind. But really at the end of the day, like those people who were consistently first to do those action items that we requested, but really ones that stood out consistently throughout the program, but also because we would talk to the other sponsors and say like, hey, good word of mouth. These people are awesome. They're like consistently doing well. And then the people that at the end, there's always the same number or group of people that just we would have to call out and follow up behind as if we were babysitting them. So you definitely don't want that reputation. And additionally, I think Jessica is, between Jessica and Justina, they have a wealth of network of people in the professional sphere. So definitely get people to know and to maybe even reach out through their contact and network to see if, where they have connections to where you want to end up working. But they're certainly not going to do that for those that can't even demonstrate, the basic baseline capability. So, you always want to make sure that part of that building up that professional image is you're on top of the communication. And that's a very simple low-hanging fruit of just being able to be on top of that task. Is that, Justina, is there anything else you want me to speak to that?
Sorry, I was muted.
Yeah.
No, thank you, Kirby. Appreciate you. I just want them to hear this from you as well, since you work with me very closely for many years. So Jessica, if you can help me to move attendees to the panelists, and we're going to open for questions and answers.
Sure.
Justina, how many capstone students do you have in this semester?
We have over 40 people right now.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm. Yes. So we are very short-handed, and yes. But we are doing our best. Jessica, I'm going to take it from the top.
Okay, I'll start from the bottom.
Mhm.
Yes, the panelists, how many people leaned mostly on their capstone or internship experience in their interviews? You just want to like pop your hand up. Who leaned mostly in those interview questions? And even any of the participants as well. So Brian, you did. Val, Kevin.
What was the question?
Did you lean in? Was most of your interviewing answers for your interview from your Fulton County experience?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Same here.
So how was your interview, Kirby?
It was like 5 rounds. It was like 4 or 5. It was a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Mine was only
It was
one.
but they were pretty, I had a lot of experience. Here's the thing for most people that coming into entry level is your 95 or 90% of your interview questions are probably going to be behavioral. That's what I got. And I had a prior career. So I was able to answer those. And then as far as my technical, I think I give a presentation, like a showcase presentation, and the guy responded was too technical as a feedback. So, but he said it was the most well-researched of anyone that he interviewed for that role. So pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, similar for me. There's also for me, there's a lot of questions about how I work as a team, and I did use my Fulton County experience to answer those questions.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that every semester there's always people saying, hey, this isn't like the project I'm doing is not along the track that I want to study for or want to enter the field. But to be perfectly honest, everyone is going to be applying for entry level, and 95, a lot of your questions percentage is going to be behavioral and how you work with a team, how do you handle challenges. So you're going to be pulling from this exclusively, if not all of it, and answering those questions unless you had a prior internship or work experience. Especially since it's within the field of IT, being able to handle interpersonal team problems within IT field is going to be much more relevant than say something outside of that.
think we can move to Jessica. You can promote everyone else, but I think we can move to questions, answers. So if you have a question for the panelists, please raise your hand. Okay, we have 2 hands. So Angel, you're gonna be first. Can you please ask your question?
Hi, my name is Angel, and my project is Trello Project Management. A big risk for my project is that my evaluation is dependent on every team using Trello. And so far, we've had a few issues with a response lag from the sponsors and team leaders because it is a new product. Not a lot of people are willing to try a new product. Do you have any advice for my team?
Angel, is that your participation metrics? Is that from capstone students or employees? Can you further define?
Yes. Do you remember that database that you had of all the student demographics that you worked on with Nathan, I believe?
Yeah, Bao and I, Nathan and Jessica, but yes.
Yes. So that was something that my team is actually contributing to. So what we are trying to do is we're trying to add to that, to add to the collective work of all of you. And we are also kind of like managing all the other teams using Trello. So our metric is basically looking at all the activity of every student, how many cards they've used, where their progress is at, things like that. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, so it's from the students, right? It's not Fulton County employees and
Both.
And the
it's both. Okay.
yes.
Yeah, I think from a communication standpoint, if you're tracking how many people are on it, so one of the things we would do for the master tracker every week when we ask people to update it is if they didn't update it, I just sent a whole email to everyone in one collective email thread. And I just posted that tracking list. So that way, using social pressure, like people could see who was on it and who wasn't, who was successful and who wasn't. So that's one of the tools I use to make sure. And that was just a very low level. It wasn't anything calling out, but just, and it also helped out in streamlining it instead of having to reach out to each individually. I did that preliminary. So you could ask Jessica or whoever is in charge of that and just saying, hey, in those communications, can we include, screenshot of this list or whatever it may be. That's one way. Another way is after that, you reach out individually and just CC Justina, and everyone's metric, I think, would be tied into the compliance of this. So, making sure you're updating Justina. Another thing is also email the sponsors with CC Justina, so that way you have an additional ally pushing this initiative. So that way the sponsors know, and email the sponsors and CC the group in the list and to say, hey, part of the metrics for this team is to make sure that they're on Trello, and just want to include you since you oversee their performance. So those are just kind of the 2 ways off the top of my head.
Yeah, I just want to add that another way that my team collected data for that database is that we contact them pretty much everywhere that we could. Like we do phone calls directly to them. We send email, we contact them on LinkedIn. Like there's a lot of ways to contact those students and people. So just utilize whatever information you have about them and contact them through there.
Oh, absolutely. I even got some of their zodiac signs.
Are you trying to push initiatives to alumni as well? Is that part of your metrics?
No.
Okay, because that's
what
within that list.
Bao mentioned that to Angel is that there's so many different ways of communication. So don't rely only on one way of channel. So, and that's a good feedback. Because remember when we started the project, Bao, you guys said, oh, we did get in touch with them.
Yeah, I remember.
I think additionally, this reminds me of, there's just going to be certain people who just won't respond. And when you come into the workforce, you're going to be pushing for initiatives that may not have buy-in. But the very first thing you do is try to create that buy-in from people who are not just your team, but not just laterally, but also up the command chain. But those people that just aren't going to respond and aren't going to do those, you just document that, and then you document the process and the number of times you reached out as part of your communication strategy. So that way you can, at the end of the project, said, hey, we got so many people successfully, but for the ones we didn't, this was our standard procedure, whether it was an email first, then an additional follow-up email, then a phone call, then a text. And so you've outlined everything you've done within reasonable amount, and you, as part of your documentation for why those people don't respond, so you don't expend further energy on them.
Awesome.
But also
thank you
your
so
coverage.
much. Yeah, I do have an Excel spreadsheet with every contact that I've started with each person. So that's great.
Thank you, Kirby, and thank you, Bao, for your feedback. I see that one of the panelists that I haven't seen before rejoined. Shaharia,
Hello.
I haven't seen you, so I
Yeah.
thought you were not able to join. Since we have you, and we're going to move back to questions, but I do want to give you a chance to introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about the program.
Sure. So my name is Shahriar. I was in the team spring 2021. I was part of the team Core Automations, and I was the team lead. And we worked on 3 different scope. We increased the existing XGBoost model, and another was to enhance the Tableau dashboard. And the last was to find an explanatory variable, what makes the case duration longer. So our client was Judge Thomas Cox, and also his secretary, I forgot her name, sorry.
Ms. Womack.
Micah, yes, Walmart Micah. And we had an amazing time. We learned a lot. I was mostly working with, because I was a team lead, I was making a lot of soft skills communications, sending out invitation for every week presentations, asking questions to Micah, get back to Justina, or Michael was our the mentor. So we learn a lot of things that we do not learn in school, to be honest. For example, the Tableau dashboard was not one of them that I learned in Georgia State, but we had to learn it separately. So there's a lot of huge learning curve, I would say. And I enjoyed working with, especially with Michael. He put so much pressure on us. We had a huge learning curve, and also we take a lot of responsibility to get the work done. Doesn't matter how late we worked. I think those came into play when I actually. So I'm going to be joining General Motors in January, and a lot of the questions they ask, especially behavioral questions, all the answers are from the internship program. So it was amazing to have an experience that you can really talk in the interviews. Yeah, so one of the advice would be to those people who are working right now in Fulton County, take take actions, and put your 100% toward the project, get the work done. Of course, there's going to be hurdles you have to overcome, and reach out to any professionals that you need. Those are going to be really handy when you come out and interview for positions, to be honest.
Thank you, Shaharia. Appreciate you.
My pleasure.
We're going to move to questions, answers. Dylan, you had a question?
Yes, my name is Dylan. I'm with the Network Segmentation and Policy Enforcement team. Our project's actually going really well with the help of Justina and David, our sponsor. I was asking because I don't typically get the chance to talk to too many IT graduates about you guys' school time. Basically, I wanted to know about your certifications, if you took any certifications during school or afterwards. Like, what's your goal for continued education after graduation?
Okay, I can speak to that a little bit. So first off, nice to meet you, Dylan. So I graduated in 2020, fall of 2020 with a security major, but I didn't go for any certifications, but I am on track to go for one now. As far as like schooling, I don't necessarily plan on going back to school at the moment, but I would say after my bachelor's, any other form of like schooling in my terms would definitely be to go for certifications, because those help with specialty and expertise in whichever field you're working in. So what I'm on track and studying for now is the Sitecore Fundamentals Developer Certification. And Sitecore is the CMS web platform that we use here at Fulton County. And I plan on taking that at the end of this year, probably be in December or early January. So certifications, as you probably know, are really helpful in the IT community. So I would definitely say try to get as many as you can, but I would say only the ones that like truly apply to what you're doing. Because like the more certifications are good, it looks good on paper, but if they don't necessarily apply to what you're doing, then it may not be worth your time. So that's my advice.
Yeah, I agree with Chris. I work in the cloud industry, so after college, I did took the AZ900, which is the Azure Fundamental. And with my job as a consultant in the data field, I am taking another certification in Power BI this upcoming week. And yeah, customers don't really care what projects you've done unless you have the certification to back it up. So having certifications would definitely be helpful to you.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of both of them, I didn't have any certifications when I graduated, and I don't have any now. But being in the risk industry that I am in, that is something that is kind of encouraged. And so if you kind of do have an idea of exactly what type of field you want to be in, or you know that there's a certification that is going to give you like a +1, then by all means, I would encourage you to go ahead and tackle that, because the earlier, I think, the better.
Can I ask,
To the panelists, apologies to Kirby, if you guys can share the certification that you think that students may benefit from in a chat, I would appreciate you. Thank you.
absolutely. So I just want to ask I'm going to ask 3 different roles or 4 different roles, and if students can just raise their hand so I can get an idea of what kind of jobs they're seeking for. And please limit just to 2, so that way you're not raising your hand. But it's going to be data engineer, cybersecurity engineer, cloud engineer, and other. So if you are interested in data engineer, if you can just go ahead and raise your hand so I can see how many people in the crowd. Okay. Nice. And then cybersecurity engineers. Is there anyone who's interested in cybersecurity? Okay.
We have 3 people.
Yeah. And then next one I'm going to ask is cloud engineer. Who's interested in cloud engineering from a raising your hand standpoint?
1, 2.
Jonathan. Okay. And then other is going to be the last one. It could be in digital transformation. Okay. So I can only speak to cloud really, but I think if you are interested in cloud, and this is true for anything else. So certifications, people who are veterans in the field are going to say certifications don't mean anything. I mean, they're kind of jaded. Like I get that response all the time. However, from someone who's at entry level, it's going to be so useful for you to be able to learn the foundational terminology and skills. Your certification is going to prime you for the workplace in terms of when people are talking about that subject matter, you're going to be able to respond hopefully intelligently. But they also do a good job of putting you away or further ahead of the pack. So if you have any type of those fundamental, it's going to allow you hopefully a space in the interview. So certifications are great, I think, as a way to distinguish you being different from everyone else. And really at the end of the day, if you have a certification, set up a home lab that you can use, because everyone needs at least one home lab, just even one that you can talk to in the interview if you're going to go into the technical sphere. The more, if you don't have the opportunity for an internship, do that home lab. so you can speak to it whenever they ask you that 1 or 2 questions.
Thanks, guys. The main reason I asked was Kirby, you actually hit the nail on the head. I work at a hotel close to Sandy Springs where Cox headquarters is down there, IBM is down there. We get a lot of IT specialists in there and they keep telling me that certifications aren't really important. So I just wanted to know, like from a graduate perspective, like did it help at all? Will it help in the field? Because I really would like to get one or 2 or 4.
Yeah, and also there's resources out there that I know because of COVID or student, they knock it down to 50%. Even from Microsoft Azure, because of COVID and whatnot, if you take one of their training day free live classes, it's a 2-day event, you get to take the AZ900 for free. So there's all these wealth of resources out there that just search for them, see if you can get them for free. There's a lot of them out there.
And Kirby, if you know of any like a free resources or classes, please post on the LinkedIn FCCOE. That will be very helpful for the students as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll post that. And also, if anyone's interested in the cloud sphere, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Everyone here who is part of the capstone program, if you do reach out to me, I will, put aside 30 minutes for you. So this is the offer for everyone or anyone here. So just connect with me and then message me. If you're interested in talking about non-cloud sphere and IT, I can help, preliminary on maybe strategies on how to network and interview, but I'm probably going to be most useful within the cloud.
Excellent. Thank you, Kirby. Anyone else want to add to this? If not, we're going to move to the next question. I don't see. Jonathan? Jonathan, you can ask your question.
Oh, sorry. I was just raising my hand, like, for when he was asking, like, who was interested in like cloud development. He answered my question in terms of the certifications.
Perfect.
We do have a question in the chat from Dane Jiang Lee. He said he's at work. He couldn't talk, but he put his question in the chat. He wanted to ask. He would love to know what should he do if his team communication is not going smoothly. They're having a problem in team communication because they all have different schedules, and it's so hard for them to meet up and divide up the work. So, do you guys have any advice for their team?
Anyone want to take that one?
So I can take a stab at it, but just as a fair warning, I soloed my project. So I didn't have a team that I had to communicate with. So I may be the least qualified person to answer this, but I do want to go ahead and encourage, because this is something that I think you will eventually encounter in the real world, whether that's people living in different time zones, et cetera. And I think it's just trying to find that sweet spot, which is whether that be through email or through, I know that when I was in the capstone, we used a lot of GroupMe. And so trying to focus on that, ever since the pandemic hit, we've seen kind of a boom in a lot of like this telecommunication. And so definitely trying to get on Zoom, whether that's on your phone or a laptop, and then kind of just making tiny sacrifices. And what I mean about that specifically is, maybe hopping on at 8:30 or 8:15, even if it is 15 minutes, because I think that those 15 minutes would, kind of just get everyone on the same page. And then everything else can maybe be tackled through GroupMe, but even just having like a group setting, even if it is through Zoom, would definitely kind of help flow the communication a little bit better.
To add to Brian, our team, we had similar situation, but we had pretty good communications, but the timing between all the interns. Our goal was to get it done. We have to get it done. I mean, so we actually worked at night, to be honest. There's few nights we worked past 12, to be honest. And it is gonna help you later on when it comes to interview. They ask you, what you did, they ask you to describe situations like, and what was the reaction, what was the result? And if they hear like you are really committed, doesn't matter how late it is, and you get the work done, it's gonna be really helpful for you, to be honest.
Yeah, when I was working at Fulton County, I was also overloading 20 hours a week at Georgia State while having a full-time job at Fulton County. So maybe it's a difference of priorities. I think what your team is trying to establish now, or should have established, is cadence. And cadence is where you establish like a working flow and who does what role, and but you got to find your footing. And once you find your footing, it makes it easier where maybe those meetings don't have to be as long, or even sometimes people can't make it and they're just like, hey, just assign me whatever it is. But in order to develop that cadence, you really have to in the beginning be able to meet. And as you know, some of the panelists here said, you meet at night or extreme in the morning. But if you're unsuccessful in establishing those cadence, you'll have to escalate it, you know, through Jessica and Justina, and let them know, because we've had situations before where priorities were different and someone said they couldn't meet at all because he was, you know, had his own business and whatnot. And then that team like tried every which way and they were really patient and they escalated Justina, and then all of a sudden that person was able to meet. So, you know, just make sure you're documenting it, and this is just escalating it afterwards. And then if you really can't work around that person with the rest of the team, one person can't meet at all because they have really difficult timelines, then just have everyone else you can meet. And then, you know, assign that person whatever it is that you need to do.
I can add on to that also. So I know you guys probably heard the phrase that, you know, people make time for what they want to. And in, you know, because everyone's students, right, in college. So most of the time people are, or at least when I was in school, everyone is usually up late or up at least past like, I don't know, 11 or 12. So usually people have a lot more free time at night, but I know that people can work and do all these other things while they're in this program. But I would definitely say try to use as many communication platforms as possible, group me, or maybe have their phone number or emails and things like that, and try to get everyone, like the other panelists said, on the same page like early on, to maybe have a set time or set schedule, or the daily or 15-minute check-ins, as Brian mentioned, definitely do help a lot as far as setting the right, you know, compass to what direction that needs to know, because any communication is better than no communication when it comes to groups. So that's essentially my take, because I've had a lot of times where I would have to, let's say, like not like watch a Netflix show or not, you know, play the game for a second just so I can meet with my group at like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, just so that we all know what direction we're going, or we meet a deliverable for the next morning, because you know that next morning everyone's going to be busy throughout the day. So I was try to say find the sweet spot and try to hold that spot essentially like sacred to the group, to where everyone needs to meet at this time, and use as many platforms as I said. And that's all I have in that regard.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else wants to add something?
Yeah, I can add something to it. I just want to, yeah, agree with what Kirby said. Just document everything, be accountable for what you have work on, show off your work, as, you know, and escalate it to Justina so she know that you did your work. And if other people didn't do their work, then that's their fault, not yours.
Justine, I wanted to add to
Absolutely.
all the comments that are made are great. I know we're dealing with.
And would you like to introduce yourself so everyone knows?
Oh, hi, everybody. My name is Annette Wilson. I am an IT vendor relations manager, and I'll be working with two of the interns on our AML Phase 4 project in the IT administration division. So, but one of the things that I wanted to strongly say is, like I said, all the suggestions are great when it comes to meeting. I'm going to be a little more firm, probably. This is a commitment. This is something that you've opted to do. It is like spoken earlier, some of the comments made, it's practice for the real world. When you get into a real job, it's not an option whether or not you can meet with your coworkers. It's not an option whether or not you show up for work. You're going to have to make that commitment, make the time, and do what needs to be done to get through these 4 weeks. Now, there's a lot of technology that can be used when you have your meetings. Like the young man said, Christopher, some communication is better than no communication at all. Your meetings can be recorded and shared in that manner. Notes, take lots of notes, share your notes, so that when you're not able to meet, everybody can't always meet. I understand that, but it's a dedicated commitment, and you have to make the time. You have to be prepared to do what needs to be done, because after this, who knows what the future will hold for you when you're going to get into a situation where you're going to be able to take that commitment, that dedication that you gave here onto a job and share it with someone else. And I'm done.
Thank you so much. You guys getting lots of feedbacks. That means lots of people in Fulton County care for you. So please take advantage of this. Next question. Joe, do you have a question? Because I see your hand being raised. I'm not sure if. Joe? Joe Young, do you have a question? Okay. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Or seeing if anyone has questions, I'll just add another note. A lot of companies have referral programs. Val, Brian, I know Fulton doesn't have a referral program, but where you can internally refer any of the applicants if you want to make a recommendation. So if you reach out to people on LinkedIn, it's very common, especially you can search through networks of Georgia State University, and you do manage to secure maybe a 30-minute informational interview. At the end of it, just ask if they have a referral program. And then if they say yes, more oftentimes than not, they'll offer, to be on the lookout. And they'll say, if you find any job postings, let me know, and they can refer you to that. Because there's a lot of incentives that go along with that. Sometimes if that applicant stays at that position for 6 months, there's a monetary, or whatever time frame, there's a monetary incentive. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you, Kirby. That's a great feedback. And that's why you utilize FCCOE, this LinkedIn group, because lots of people on this group, they have position in the company where you want to find a job. So like Kirby mentioned, you can get their referrals and create that network with them through this LinkedIn group.
And just keep in mind, for them to get the referral, you'll have to, they'll need to submit your resume, or you have to do it before you apply. So if you are planning on applying, just reach out to them and ask them, and that way you can get referred.
Since we don't have any questions from attendees, I'll be selecting next 2 people to ask the questions. So be ready. Min, you want to ask a question?
Yes, good afternoon, like Kirby. Since you mentioned about the referral programs through linkage, right? When I try to submit my resumes, or when I try to communicate with one of the recruiter for that particular company, right? And I ask them, I'm interested to working at their companies or joining their teams or support their organization. So I did submit my resume, but they never respond back to my message or my email. It's just like they read it and it just like blew by and never like got back like to me. And I just found out that's like I would rather go to like Handshake and apply it because the recruiters, they care for you, and they do tend, some of the recruiters do email like you back or do send back like the message, unlike LinkedIn. And I don't want to join, pay like extra like $29 for LinkedIn's gold or premium just to get into that community. Like, do you think like, are there's like any possible chance, like one of the recruiter got back like to me, maybe the warden is not correct or something like that. But I think warden is not where, like I think when I try to communicate with that person, I use a very nice like language. Like I don't want to be rude because I want to be in their position when I read that like letters or messages like to.
Yeah. Is your question about reaching out through LinkedIn and utilizing it?
Yes.
Utilize. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So there's a really good book out there called The 2-Hour Job Search. But basically some of the principles within that is when you're reaching out, and it could be anyone, you try to find some type of commonality. So if it's Georgia State, join the Robinson College. They have like a network of alumni. So join that, and that way you can reach out to them. You can either connect or message them. And then when you do send out the initial greet, keep it to like 3 sentences. Very short. So that way, because if the longer you keep it, I know some people, I used to be guilty of this myself, like really want them to know I'm super excited, I'm the right fit. Like if you put it very long, they feel pressure to respond back because they want to match your, same energy, but then they may not get around to it because it can take forever and it could be priority 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. So when you reach out to be like, hey, I saw you were working within XYZ company. I'm a student of Georgia State University as well. Could I just have some, a few minutes of your time? And then just leave it at that. And then your goal is to search for people who are going to say yes. Not everyone's going to say yes, and then other people that say yes, you're trying to find an advocate or someone that is, who wants to be your advocate. And usually those people it's more to do with themselves than it has to do with you. Like as long as you're creating a good impression, you want to find people who are very helpful because someone's helped them along the way. And so part of that isn't necessarily you need to wow them. You want to give off a very polished image, but just being able to have a conversation with them for 30 minutes, without having a lot of pressure, but being structured and very like goal oriented within it, but not too much where you're driving it. But a lot of times it's asking questions to them and they'll fill up that time. But once you establish that rapport, just go ahead and ask them again of that referral, and then just keep them, maybe just keep them updated on job search. It could be just a once a month, hey, I'm still looking, just want to update you. I got my certification in this. And then when you do find something, you can reach out. But I definitely recommend the 2-Hour Job Search book. I'll see if there's a PDF, but I'll post it in here. But that should help because you can apply to 300 jobs and not get a single interview. So definitely use networking as everyone tells you, but there's definitely a way to do it smartly.
Yes, thank you for your feedback.
Thank you, Kirby. We have a time for one more question. Dwayne, do you want to ask a question? Dwayne Chito?
No, I don't have a question. It was answered earlier. It was asked earlier by Dylan in regards to the certificate. And I believe Kirby was the one that responded to it. Yeah, so no.
Okay, thank you. So I'm opening this time for panelists. If anyone would like to add anything or add the conclusion, we have a few more minutes that we can dedicate to the panelists. Anything else would you like to mention? Send a message to the students so they can really benefit out of this program the most.
Actually, Justine, I do have a question. What's the culture like working at Fulton County? Did you hear me?
Yes, yes. And that's the question for the panelists?
Yes.
Yeah, so I found the culture to be amazing. very transparent, very open, and very flat, I guess. And I mean that in a sense that you can reach out to people and even stop people and be like, hey, introduce yourselves. Everyone is incredibly kind. And so just seeing that and seeing how they're also rooting for you, they're there to kind of support you and, to help you grow. That was very, very encouraging and kind of, it definitely helped me personally get out of like that shy shell in the professional setting. And so that's something that I definitely want to get across to everyone. It's like, you know, don't be afraid to ask questions and to tell people, hey, I'm not really understanding what's going on here, or hey, could you give me some feedback on the presentation that I gave? Because everyone there, they're incredibly kind. And that's something that I really appreciate and kind of carry with me to this day.
Thank you, Brian. Anybody else would like to add something?
Yeah, I can add a little to that. One thing that still stuck to me to this day is when Justina told me that there's no stupid questions. So, just keep asking questions. There are times where I don't know what to ask, and that's fine. But you can ask for like clarification or things you don't understand. Just let them know that they will explain it to you.
Thank you.
Chris, Shaharia?
So working in Fulton County was, go ahead, Chris. You like to go?
Oh, no, it's okay. You already started. I'll go next.
Okay. Yeah, it was very amazing because we could reach out to so many people. Even our client, Micah, she was amazing. She was really open. And she also said, no question is a dumb question. Ask any question. So every week we would present her our progress or deliverables, and we would ask her questions, like simple questions, then where she wants to make some changes on dashboard she uses. So they're very open. They want you to succeed. They want you to learn. They already know that this is your first time being in the real world, working for a real project. Yeah, so don't be afraid. Ask questions, communicates. If you're stuck on anything, communicates. Justin is always there. Your manager, your mentor. Yeah, it doesn't matter how late it is. Just send them a text, maybe. Yeah, so don't be afraid to ask questions, and you can learn from it.
Thank you.
I can add on to that. So when as far as the culture, right, still in the culture question, when I first got on board, like as an intern, honestly, I didn't necessarily like the culture in a sense, but it was just me being in my own head rather than what was actually the real case. Because when I came on, one, it's like working for a government center, you inherently think that things are much more like strict, and which they are, but to a certain degree, because everyone my first day was like wearing suits and things like that, and it just looks so black and white. So I was kind of taken off guard, like, oh man, I really don't want to mess up or look stupid in front of anybody in these suits or business suits and stuff like that. So I tended to not make myself vulnerable in any aspect. So I didn't ask questions that I didn't understand. Or if I had a problem, I would just talk to someone like on the side that I kind of was comfortable with. But as far as making new relationships, it took me a second just to realize, like, okay, these people are, just like me. And after hearing them talk to each other, I was like, oh, this county or this government center is more open arms than what first meets the eye. So I would definitely say the culture is with open arms as long as you take initiative about it. And like we always mentioned this whole time about asking questions or not being afraid to vocalize your opinions respectfully, people enjoy conversation. So it's good to talk with them and to help build the culture up, because you're a part of the culture too. Since you guys are here, you guys are a part of the culture with us. It's not just us presenting the culture to you guys. So I think we're all in this to help build it better. And that's my take on it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chris, that was very well said.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think just from my time working there, you'll find that people, I can speak to the people that are part of the capstone program, sponsors and everyone that's involved to make the program better. As far as capstone, it's not part of the primary job duty of the people who are involved. They are involved because of some personal drive to mentor and develop talent. So I find the people that are involved in the capstone program to be, as a culture, very like generous, and they want to see improvement. I think when you extend it to the organization as a whole, you may not find that as much. And it's not, I think from a risk level, I think government are more risk adverse just because it's better to maintain stability and security, because a lot of their job functions, you want to make sure that the services you provide are not interrupted. So I think from just when you are trying to implement certain changes or initiatives, you could get some pushbacks, and that's pretty normal throughout the organization. But I think you as an individual have to recognize when initiatives you're meeting friction, and instead of trying to like trying to like burn yourself out trying to make things happen, you just have to recognize that there's power at play that are above you and beyond you, and trying to work within your sphere of influence where you can.
Thank you, Kirby.
Thank you, Kirby. Dwayne, that answer your question?
It did. Thank you so much for your feedback, guys.
Perfect. Last call, any questions, any conclusions, any add-on from the panelists, from the attendees? Jessica, if you can check the chat, I'd appreciate you.
I don't see any questions.
No questions. Brian, Shaharia, Chris, Kirby, Bao. Anybody would like to add anything in conclusion?
I'd like to add that I'm excited to see the final result of everyone's projects at the end of the semester, and to see the progress. One, for the project, because I know that'll do good, but also to see the progress in you all as individuals from where you started when you first got here to where you ended. I remember at the end of the semester that I was on, was that in the spring of 2021, Justina? Oh yeah. It was cool to see my team personally where they started to where they ended off, and then also to see the other teams that I was in and out of their projects, but I could definitely see the progress. So I'm definitely excited for that, for you all, and I think you guys should also be excited for yourselves to see where your future is in a couple months. So that's it. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. That was very nice, Chris. Kirby, anybody else?
Yeah, well, for me, it's honestly pretty cool to see that what I did for my project is being added on to. That's pretty, I mean, it's crazy.
Yes, we
It's
are
like,
using daily.
yeah. It's like, as I mentioned earlier, we sucked at the beginning, but by the end of it, we've learned so much and we've grown.
You guys had lots of support. And I want to mention here, and that's a great feedback, what Bao mentioned and Chris, that every single project that is touched within the Fulton County, it's a real project, it's a real example. It really touches lots of people and touches lots of Fulton County citizens. So Fulton County has 6,000 employees. And then we have so many citizens that your project is touching. So think about it. Your work matters. So when you guys are gonna go to the interview, you will have lots of things to talk about, from soft skills and from soft skills to the technical leadership. And every single individual, Kirby, Chris, Bao mentioned that they utilized their experiences within the Fulton County during their interviews. So please learn from them. They have shared their LinkedIn link in a chat. Hook them up, send them a message. Thank you for joining, panelists. Connect with them, network with them. Kirby even offered half an hour discussion on clouds, which is unbelievable. That's really generous. It really doesn't happen often. So be respectful and appreciate their time, and reach out and say thank you. And I say thank you to all the panelists as well. Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you everyone for having me here. Very excited to see everyone's project.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. It was really good to see everyone. It's yeah, take advantage of this project, and I hope you guys succeed. And of course, like everyone else said, we want to see the project that we worked on, and you guys put the work and how far it goes, and the final product. Thank you all.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you so
Shahaya,
much
we
for-
have an article written about your project. That doesn't happen often.
Okay, would you share it with us?
Yes,
I want
we'll
to see
do.
it.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Last call. If there's no more questions, no more conclusions, no more feedback, I appreciate every single person that joined. All the panelists, attendees, please stay on the call. We have still discussion on the items that are missed and at risk. And all the panelists, all the best, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We'll be sending
you.
appreciation email to you all.
Thank you. All right, guys. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Goodbye.
Okay, wonderful. Did you guys enjoy it?
I did.
Yeah,
It
was good.
Yes, it was very
It was awesome.
interesting.
Perfect. Awesome. So let's move to, hold on, let me stop recording.